oceans have long been home to mysteries and legends, with tales of monstrous creatures lurking in the depths. Among the most infamous of these stories is that of the Kraken, a sea creature so enormous that it could pull entire ships under the water. For centuries, sailors have whispered of this terrifying beast, and its legend has grown into one of the most enduring myths of maritime history. But where did this story originate, and is there any truth behind the terrifying idea of a creature capable of swallowing ships whole? To explore the Kraken is to delve into the dark, dangerous world of the sea, where the line between myth and reality is often blurred, and where every storm might hide something ancient and monstrous. The Kraken's legend likely began in the northern seas, where the cold waters of the North Atlantic have long been a source of both wonder and dread. Scandinavian sailors are often credited with first spreading the myth of the Kraken, and the creature is still featured in the folklore of countries like Norway, Iceland, and Greenland. Early accounts of the Kraken describe it as a monstrous, squid-like beast that dwells in the deep waters off the coast of Norway. The creature is said to have tentacles that stretch out as far as a ship's mast, wrapping around vessels and pulling them into the depths. But the myth of the Kraken is not confined to one region. It has been adopted and adapted over the centuries by various cultures, with each retelling adding layers to its terrifying nature. In the 18th century, the Kraken was written about by explorers and naturalists such as Francesco Negri and Pierre Denis de Montfort, who described it as a creature with a monstrous appetite, capable of dragging ships and their crews down into the watery abyss. While these accounts were based on folklore, they helped to solidify the Kraken's place in maritime myth and inspire the imaginations of sailors around the world. The Kraken's physical description has varied throughout history, but there are consistent themes in the accounts. The most common portrayal is that of a gigantic sea creature resembling an octopus or squid. This beast is said to possess multiple tentacles, each capable of ensnaring a ship and dragging it beneath the waves. Some descriptions also suggest that the Kraken has a massive body, large enough to be mistaken for an island when viewed from a distance. This is one of the key features of the Kraken myth. It is not just a creature, but a force of nature, powerful enough to create the illusion of land and deceive sailors into sailing too close. The Kraken's eyes, according to some accounts, are said to glow like lanterns in the dark, and it has a terrifying, deep roar that can be heard echoing through the waves. The creature is often depicted as having a malevolent intelligence, capable of sinking entire fleets and leaving no trace behind. Some sailors even claimed that they could hear the Kraken's voice as it roared through the depths, signaling its approach. This ominous warning is another aspect of the legend that captures the imagination, the idea that the Kraken was both a predator and a master of its domain, using the ocean as its hunting ground. Throughout the centuries, there have been numerous stories of Kraken attacks, with sailors recounting harrowing experiences of being attacked by this monstrous beast. These accounts often describe ships being pulled under by enormous tentacles, with crew members disappearing without a trace. In some cases, the Kraken was said to rise from the depths, its tentacles reaching for the ships, while in others, the creature would drag its prey below the surface in a violent struggle. One of the most famous accounts of a Kraken attack comes from the Danish author and explorer Francesco Negri. In the late 17th century, Negri wrote about an encounter between a ship and a sea creature that matched the description of the Kraken. According to Negri, the ship was sailing off the coast of Norway when it was suddenly attacked by a massive creature with tentacles. The ship's crew fought bravely to fend off the attack, but in the end, they were no match for the Kraken's sheer power. Some sailors even claimed that the creature was so large that it could be seen from miles away, its massive form rising from the depths of the ocean like a moving island. Other sailors have described similar encounters, with many recounting terrifying moments when they thought their ship was going to be dragged under by the Kraken. These accounts often speak of the creature's immense size, its power, and the eerie silence that preceded its attack. The Kraken's ability to move quickly through the water and to strike without warning made it a perfect predator, able to strike fear into the hearts of even the most experienced sailors. While many of these accounts are based on folklore and superstition, there are some who believe that they may have been inspired by real-life encounters with giant squid or other deep-sea creatures. Giant squid, for example, are known to grow to lengths of up to 40 feet, and there have been reports of these creatures attacking ships and even fishing boats. However, there is no definitive proof that the Kraken, as described in mythology, ever existed. The Kraken has remained a central figure in popular culture, appearing in everything from literature to films, video games, and even advertising. The creature's image has evolved over the years, but it has always been portrayed as a powerful and dangerous force of nature. In literature, the Kraken is often depicted as a symbol of the unknown, a reminder of the vast and mysterious world beneath the ocean's surface. In the 19th century, the Kraken was popularized by writers such as Jules Verne, who incorporated the creature into his famous novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. In Verne's version of the story, The Kraken is portrayed as a terrifying sea monster that threatens the lives of the crew aboard the submarine Nautilus. Verne's depiction of the Kraken helped to cement the creature's place in literary tradition, and it has since been featured in countless other works of fiction. In modern times, the Kraken has been embraced by Hollywood, with the creature making appearances in films such as Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, and Clash of the Titans. These portrayals often focus on the Kraken's immense size and destructive power, emphasizing its role as a villainous force of nature that must be defeated. While these depictions are often exaggerated for dramatic effect, they help to keep the Kraken's legend alive and relevant for contemporary audiences. Although the Kraken is widely regarded as a myth, it is rooted in a very real fear of the unknown that has plagued sailors for centuries. The oceans are vast and largely unexplored, with only a fraction of the sea floor having been mapped by modern technology. This sense of the unknown is what makes stories of sea monsters so compelling. They tap into humanity's fear of what lies beneath the waves. In recent years, marine scientists have made incredible discoveries about the creatures that inhabit the ocean depths. Giant squid, for example, have been found to grow to extraordinary sizes, with some specimens measuring over 40 feet in length. These creatures, once thought to be purely mythological, are now known to exist in the deep ocean, where they remain elusive and mysterious. The discovery of these giant squid has led some to speculate that they may have been the inspiration for the Kraken myth. Another factor contributing to the Kraken myth is the phenomenon of the Kraken effect, which refers to the powerful and unpredictable movements of large marine creatures in the ocean. When a giant squid or other deep-sea creature moves through the water, it can create waves and disturbances that may appear as though the ocean itself is alive, attacking ships and dragging them under. This mysterious and terrifying behavior has likely fueled the myth of the Kraken for centuries. The Kraken, whether real or imagined, continues to captivate our collective imagination. It is a symbol of the power and mystery of the sea, and its story is one that resonates with sailors and adventurers of all kinds. From ancient legends to modern films, the Kraken's image remains a potent reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the surface of the ocean, a reminder that even in the age of modern science and exploration, there are still mysteries left to uncover in the vast and unexplored depths of the sea. As we continue to explore the ocean and uncover its secrets, the Kraken will likely remain a fixture in maritime folklore, a creature that exists not only in the depths of the sea but in the minds of those who venture out to sea. The Kraken will always be there, lurking in the dark, waiting for the moment when the next sailor, lost in the mist and the waves, will feel its terrifying grasp. And so, the legend of the Kraken endures, a tale that stretches back to the earliest days of seafaring, continuing to evolve as long as we gaze out across the endless horizon. Who knows what we may find in the deep, dark ocean? The Kraken may be waiting for us, and perhaps it always will be. It is said that the Black Sea is a place where the very air trembles with the weight of forgotten history, a vast abyss where the seas seem to whisper of curses too old for any human to bear. For centuries, it has swallowed ships whole, their crews vanishing as if they had never existed at all, their names erased from memory like footprints in the tide. And yet, no disappearance is as chilling as the fate of the Soviet research vessel Vityaz, which disappeared without a trace in 1942, leaving behind only questions, and an unshakable feeling that something far older, far more powerful, waits beneath the waves. But what if it wasn't a storm or a military tragedy that claimed the Vityaz? What if it was something deeper, something that had watched over these waters for millennia, a presence that has never been fully understood, nor ever explained? And what if that presence is still waiting for the next ship to come too close, to venture too far into the Black Sea's deadly embrace? The Black Sea lies at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, a body of water whose silence is deafening. At first glance, it seems unremarkable, a body of water measuring approximately 436,000 square kilometers, bordered by 6 countries: Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, Russia, and Georgia. But this sea holds a dark, mysterious power that has plagued sailors for centuries. To the casual observer, the Black Sea might seem just another stretch of ocean, albeit with a few peculiarities. Its water is saltier than most seas, yet it is far less salty than the Mediterranean. The sea's most fascinating aspect, however, is its anoxic layers, deep, oxygen-deprived regions where no life can survive. Below a certain depth, the water is entirely devoid of oxygen, preserved in an eternal slumber. The silence beneath its surface is unnerving, and it is here that ancient wrecks, some centuries old, remain perfectly intact, untouched by time. For centuries, civilizations have come and gone along its coasts. From the ancient Greeks, who once colonized its shores, to the powerful empires of the Byzantines and Ottomans, the Black Sea has witnessed wars, conquests, and untold tragedies. Many of these conflicts, great battles and cataclysmic events, have been swallowed by the sea, leaving only fragments and whispers. But it is not just the sea's physical nature that gives it an unsettling aura. It is the legends, the deep-seated myths and superstitions, that swirl around it like a dense fog. Tales of ghost ships, cursed fleets, and strange forces lurking beneath the waves haunt the folklore of the Black Sea. And perhaps the most famous tale is that of the Vityaz. In 1942, amidst the chaos of World War II, the Soviet Union launched a covert mission into the Black Sea. The Vityaz was a research vessel, part of a larger scientific initiative to explore the depths of the Black Sea and map its submerged features. However, the Vityaz was also more than just a scientific vessel. It was tasked with surveying potential military targets, mapping wrecks of naval significance, and uncovering the remains of fleets lost in centuries past. Commanded by Captain Lev Anatolievich Mikhailov, a seasoned officer of the Soviet Navy, and accompanied by Dr. Alexander Baranov, a marine biologist and historian, the Vityaz set sail from Sevastopol, a key port city on the Crimean Peninsula, on July 2, 1942. The mission was supposed to be routine, mapping the seabed, conducting biological research, and possibly identifying minerals or submerged wrecks that could aid the Soviet war effort. Mikhailov, a stern and disciplined officer, trusted science and his crew. His life at sea had taught him to be cautious but resolute. He had seen his fair share of naval tragedies, but he believed in the power of reason and technology. On the other hand, Dr. Alexander Baranov was less pragmatic. His mind was steeped in the ancient legends of the Black Sea. He had spent years studying the sea's peculiarities, its strange phenomena and its storied history. Unlike Mikhailov, Baranov was not quick to dismiss the old tales. He believed that beneath the surface, there was something lurking, something beyond human understanding. Baranov had long been fascinated by the Vityaz mission. He was particularly intrigued by a legend that had been passed down by the fishermen along the coast of Crimea, tales of an ancient civilization that had once ruled the region, a civilization that had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their ruins beneath the waves. Some even whispered that the Black Sea was cursed, a place where powerful spirits guarded their secrets jealously, punishing those who dared to uncover them. Mikhailov scoffed at such notions, dismissing them as superstition. But as they sailed deeper into the Black Sea, Baranov began to feel a mounting unease. Something about the sea's stillness unsettled him. It wasn't just the fog that seemed to swallow them at night, nor the strange sonar readings they encountered, distorted echoes, dark shapes that vanished the moment they tried to get a clearer image. It was the feeling that they were not alone, that the sea itself was watching them, waiting. On the 5th day of the mission, as the Vityaz moved deeper into the Black Sea, the atmosphere aboard the ship began to shift. The fog that had been a constant companion grew thicker, rolling in like a living thing, swallowing the horizon and leaving the crew with an eerie sense of isolation. At night, the winds grew cold, and strange noises echoed from the depths, distant thuds, like the groaning of a ship's hull or the cry of something ancient. The crew began to whisper about the old legends, the lost fleets of the Byzantines, the sunken cities that lay beneath the waters, and the mysterious force that seemed to guard them. Dr. Baranov had his suspicions. He had noticed that, as they sailed further into the Black Sea, the sea's behavior became more erratic. The water, once calm and predictable, now seemed almost alive. Sonar readings began to fluctuate wildly, displaying images that defied explanation, strange, amorphous shapes that seemed to move against the current. Captain Mikhailov, ever the skeptic, attributed these anomalies to equipment malfunctions. But Baranov was not so sure. He spent long hours on the deck, staring into the murky water, wondering what ancient forces were stirring beneath the surface. On the 6th day, the Vityaz came across a vast, submerged ruin, a city, its stone walls still intact after centuries of being buried beneath the sea. The discovery sent a wave of excitement through the crew. The find was significant, a city older than any known civilization in the region, perhaps a remnant of the lost civilization Baranov had long studied. But as the ship approached the site, the atmosphere turned grim. The sonar readings were erratic, the instruments malfunctioning in ways that made no sense. The crew's sense of unease deepened. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the city seemed to vanish from the screens. The Vityaz was drawn into the center of the ruin, but as they entered the depths of the submerged city, the ship began to experience strange phenomena. Lights flashing in the distance, disembodied voices, and an overwhelming sense that they were being watched. That night, something happened that none of the crew could explain. When Soviet search parties were sent to investigate, they found no sign of wreckage. No floating debris, no bodies, nothing. The Vityaz had simply vanished, swallowed by the Black Sea without a trace. The crew of the Vityaz, including Captain Mikhailov and Dr. Baranov, had disappeared as if the sea had consumed them in one greedy gulp. The Soviet Navy launched an extensive search operation, scouring the waters for months. But the deeper they went, the more they encountered anomalies. Compasses that spun wildly, sonar readings that displayed images of strange underwater structures, and eerie, disembodied voices on the radio that seemed to come from nowhere. But the ship and its crew were gone. Some say it was the curse of the Black Sea, an ancient, unfathomable force that had taken them. Others claim that the sea itself had played some role, its mysterious underwater currents swallowing the ship whole. But the truth remains elusive, lost to the depths of the Black Sea, which holds its secrets tightly. Even after the Vityaz's disappearance, strange occurrences continued. Ships that sailed too close to the site of the wreck reported eerie disturbances, lights flashing beneath the waves, inexplicable sonar readings, and a creeping sense that they were not alone. Fishermen spoke of ghostly apparitions rising from the sea, figures from the past who seemed to beckon ships into the abyss. To this day, the mystery of the Vityaz remains unsolved. Experts argue over the cause of the ship's disappearance, some pointing to a freak natural event, others speculating about a military disaster or even a secret mission gone awry. But the truth, whatever it may be, remains locked in the watery depths of the Black Sea, waiting for the next ship to come too close to unravel the terrible secret that it guards so fiercely. The Black Sea remains one of the most mysterious bodies of water on Earth, a place where ancient civilizations once thrived, only to vanish beneath the waves. A place where the supernatural seems as real as the physical, and where the forces at play are beyond human comprehension. The Vityaz may be lost to the depths, but its mystery is far from forgotten. What happened to the crew of the Vityaz? Was it an accident, a military secret, or something darker? What ancient force lurks beneath the surface, guarding the secrets of the Black Sea? For centuries, the ocean has been a dark and unyielding force, its depths hiding secrets so terrifying that even the bravest souls tremble at its mysteries. It is a vast, unknowable realm where the rules of nature bend and break, where human ambitions are swallowed whole, leaving behind only the faintest whispers of what once was. And among the countless stories that the sea keeps buried, there is one that stands apart. One that defies logic, reason, and the very fabric of reality itself. This is the story of the Mary Celeste, a ship that disappeared without a trace, taking its crew with it into the heart of the ocean's deepest secrets. A merchant brigantine, her cargo untouched, her sails still set as though she were waiting for someone to return. But no one ever did. The Mary Celeste had been a symbol of hope and commerce, a vessel trusted by seasoned sailors and merchants alike. But in November of 1872, she set sail from New York, bound for Genoa, carrying 750 barrels of volatile industrial alcohol. She was supposed to be on a simple journey across the Atlantic. But what awaited her, what she found in the endless void of the ocean, would remain hidden from the world forever. Weeks later, a passing ship, the Dei Grazia, found her drifting in eerie silence. The Mary Celeste was adrift, her sails torn and her hull eerily still, but there were no signs of a struggle, no wreckage, no storm. Nothing. The crew was gone. Vanished. As if they had evaporated into thin air. On board, the ship was untouched, her cargo perfectly intact, but the unsettling scene left behind painted a terrifying picture. A captain's table set as though a meal had been interrupted. The logbook open to the last entry, scrawled in a trembling hand, describing a deep, unexplained unease among the crew, as if something unseen had gripped them. Yet, there was no blood, no evidence of violence, no trace of what happened to them. What was it that caused the Mary Celeste to abandon all sense of reason? What unseen force, what terror beyond human comprehension, drove the crew to disappear without a single trace? This is not the tale of a shipwreck or pirate attack. It's a riddle so chilling, so profound, that it has haunted sailors, historians, and the curious for over a century. A riddle that continues to defy the most logical minds, an enigma buried beneath the waves, where the answers remain lost, waiting to claim all who seek them. As twilight descended upon the Atlantic, the ocean's vastness seemed to swallow the horizon. The boundary between day and night blurred into a twilight realm, where the air was thick with salt, mist, and the weight of unspoken secrets. The sea stretched outward, a canvas of inky blackness, its surface reflecting the dimming sky like a mirror to the unknown. Above, the sky was a sickly shade of gray, heavy with the promise of storms yet to come. Low clouds clung to the heavens, blocking the moonlight and leaving only the faintest traces of starlight to pierce the gloom. The wind, relentless and cold, carried the familiar scent of the ocean, but there was something else in the air, something different. A faint, almost imperceptible hum seemed to vibrate through the ship's timbers, a sound that some sailors described as the voice of the sea itself, murmuring secrets from the depths. The Mary Celeste sailed through a veil of mist, which clung to the ship like an ancient shroud. The fog thickened as the hours wore on, making the world feel smaller and more confining, as if the sea were pushing in from all sides. It was in this eerie quiet that the Mary Celeste continued her course, her wooden hull creaking and groaning under the strain of the relentless ocean. The ship was alone in the vastness of the Atlantic, moving almost in a trance-like state, guided by some invisible force. No sounds other than the ship's own creaks and groans filled the air, yet there was a sensation of something more, a presence, something that hovered just beyond the reach of understanding. The fog, dense and suffocating, obscured everything except the immediate surroundings. The ship was adrift, yet not lost. And somewhere beneath the surface of the waves, something ancient and powerful stirred, watching. Captain Alaric Traystane was a man forged in the crucible of the sea. His life had been spent battling tempests, navigating treacherous waters, and surviving the many dangers of the ocean. At 48 years old, his face was a map of the sea itself, weathered by salt and sun, lined with the deep grooves of a man who had seen the world in its most brutal form. His piercing gray eyes had seen the rise and fall of many ships, the birth and death of countless stories, yet there was something about the Mary Celeste that unnerved him. Something about this ship felt different, as if it had a life of its own. Despite his reputation for fearlessness, Captain Traystane had always been one to respect the unpredictable nature of the sea. He was known for his meticulous attention to detail, his steady hand at the helm, and his keen sense of when to push forward and when to turn back. But as the Mary Celeste sailed deeper into the fog, Traystane felt an unease gnawing at him, a feeling he had never fully trusted in his seasoned years as a sailor. Beside him stood Elias Markham, the ship's first mate. Where Traystane was pragmatic, Markham was steeped in superstition. Elias was a man of the old ways, carrying with him the belief that the sea had a spirit, a soul that could be both kind and cruel. He wore a carved talisman of a sea god around his neck, a token of protection that he swore had saved him during a storm years ago. Though the crew often mocked him for his odd rituals and warnings of omens, Markham never wavered in his belief that the sea had a deeper, darker force at its core. Elias often kept to himself, staring into the horizon with an intensity that bordered on obsession, whispering to himself about the things that lurked beneath the waves. Despite their differences, the captain and the first mate shared an unspoken bond, one forged over many years of sailing together. Yet, as the Mary Celeste sailed deeper into the fog, their bond began to fray, tension creeping in between them, fed by an unseen force that neither could explain. It was on the fourth night that the Mary Celeste entered the fog. The air grew thick, heavy, and still. The ship's sails, though set, barely fluttered. The rigging creaked ominously as if the ship itself were groaning under some unseen weight. The sea, once violent and unpredictable, had turned eerily calm, as if the very ocean had fallen into a deep, unnatural slumber. Elias stood at the bow, his talisman clutched tightly in his hand, his eyes scanning the waters with an intensity that bordered on desperation. "Something's out there," he muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible above the sound of the wind. He wasn't sure whether it was the fog playing tricks on his mind, or whether he had truly seen something, but there was a feeling in his gut, a feeling he couldn't shake. Below deck, Captain Traystane studied his charts intently, the flickering light of the lantern casting long shadows across the wooden walls. His compass, which had always been a reliable tool, now spun erratically, its needle dancing as if caught in a magnetic field. "Magnetic interference," he muttered, though his voice betrayed a slight hesitation. He had encountered such anomalies before, but never on this scale. The needle of the compass twitched again, and the hair on the back of his neck stood on end. The air felt colder than it should have, the temperature dropping several degrees with no clear explanation. Suddenly, the Mary Celeste lurched violently, throwing Tragedies from his seat. Ink splattered across the cabin, and the ship groaned as if it were being pulled in two. The crew scrambled to regain their footing, unsure of what had caused the disturbance. No wave had struck the ship, no wind had pushed it off course. It was as though the ship was drifting on its own, guided by forces beyond human understanding. Then came the sounds. At first, they were faint, mere whispers that could have been the wind, or perhaps the ship's own creaking timbers. But as the hours wore on, the sounds grew louder, more distinct. A low, rhythmic hum seemed to reverberate through the ship, emanating from the water below. Elias, pale and trembling, swore he heard voices, though none of the other crew members could make them out. Captain Tragedies dismissed the idea as nothing more than superstition, but even he could not ignore the sense of foreboding that had settled over the Mary Celeste. By the sixth night, the fog had thickened to a nearly impenetrable wall, reducing visibility to mere feet. The lantern light cast strange, shifting shadows across the deck, making it seem as though the ship itself was being consumed by the mist. The crew's unease turned to fear when Elias spotted what he described as lights beneath the water. Pale, green, and pulsating, they swirled in intricate patterns, as though something was moving beneath the surface. "It's the spirits of the drowned," Elias whispered, clutching his talisman in a vice-like grip. Tragedies, ever the pragmatist, ordered a depth sounding, hoping to put the crew's fears to rest. The lead line plunged into the cold water, and a deep vibration pulsed through the ship, as though the sea itself were stirring. The crew froze, tense with anticipation, as the line jerked taut, only to snap, the severed rope recoiling with a loud crack. Panic spread like wildfire through the crew. Whispers of ancient curses, sea monsters, and mythical beasts began to circulate, but Tragedies silenced them with a stern command. Despite his reassurances, he could not escape the growing sense that something beyond human comprehension was at work. The strange glow beneath the water intensified, casting a sickly light over the Mary Celeste. The creature, whatever it was, seemed to be watching. And the crew, they were helpless, adrift on an ocean where the rules of nature itself seemed to have been suspended. As the night deepened, the Mary Celeste continued its eerie journey through the mist. Captain Tragedies stood at the helm, his eyes strained, his mind racing as the ship moved through an ocean that seemed to defy every natural law. The compass had long since ceased to function, spinning aimlessly in the absence of any true direction. Beside him, Elias muttered prayers to every sea god he had ever known, his talisman clutched tightly in his hands. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, a chill that sank deep into the bones of every man aboard. The timbers of the ship creaked as if under some great weight, and then, without warning, the sea began to churn, violent and wild. Something massive, ancient, and unknown was rising from the depths. The Mary Celeste lurched violently, its hull groaning under the strain as if it were being drawn down into the ocean itself. From the depths, a shadow loomed, vast, shifting, and incomprehensible. Tentacles rose from the water, each one covered in glowing runes that pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly light. The ship groaned as the massive limbs coiled around the hull, their grip unyielding. The sea seemed to glow with an unnatural radiance, the water refracted through the mist like 1,000 flashing eyes. Captain Tragedies and Elias stood frozen, staring in horror at the creature before them. Its eyes, large and luminescent, gleamed with intelligence, ancient, terrible, and otherworldly. And then, without speaking, the creature's presence filled their minds, a voice that resonated deep within their skulls. "You dare trespass in my ancient depths?" The air was thick with the weight of its words, each syllable burning like fire. Images flashed in their minds, wrecked ships, drowned sailors, cities long forgotten, consumed by the ocean's unforgiving grip. And then, the creature's gaze turned to them, its power undeniable. For a moment, everything stood still. The crew, the ship, and even the sea seemed to hold its breath. Elias stepped forward, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and awe. "We meant no harm, Great One. We seek only passage." For a long moment, the creature's gaze remained fixed on them, its ancient eyes studying the mortals before it. Then, without warning, the tentacles released their grip, the ship shuddering violently as they withdrew into the abyss. The message was clear. The Mary Celeste had been spared, but not welcomed. The sea calmed almost immediately, and the glowing light from beneath the water slowly faded. The ship, now free from the creature's grasp, floated silently, its course uncertain. The aftermath of the encounter was eerie silence. The Mary Celeste drifted aimlessly through a sea that had returned to its unnatural stillness. The crew, what was left of them, moved like ghosts on the deck. The laughter and camaraderie that once filled the ship had been replaced with a heavy, palpable fear. Some men had thrown themselves overboard, overcome by terror. Others simply vanished, swallowed by the ocean without a trace. Elias Markham was among the missing. His talisman lay discarded on the deck, its protective powers seemingly powerless against the horrors they had faced. Captain Tragedies, once a man of confidence, now seemed hollow, drained of the life he had once possessed. His eyes were haunted, and his every movement was sluggish, as though weighed down by the knowledge of what had transpired. And the sea, still, watched. The Mary Celeste sailed on, but her future was uncertain. The ocean around her was dark and still, like the calm before a storm that never came. Captain Tragedies, his hand shaking, wrote the final words in the logbook. His writing was hurried, and the words bled into each other, the ink smeared as though the very act of writing was a struggle. I leave these words as a warning and perhaps as a confession. The entity we encountered beneath the waves was real. Its eyes have seen the rise and fall of empires, and its whispers carry the weight of the ages. We were not meant to find it, and yet we did. I fear we have awoken something that should have remained undisturbed. As Tragedies sealed the logbook, the ocean around them seemed to darken, the water turning black as night. The ruins of an ancient city loomed on the horizon, a ghostly silhouette rising from the depths, its dark, hollow windows staring back at the ship. "The sea keeps its secrets," Captain Tragedies murmured, his voice a whisper. "But at what cost?" And as the ship sailed on, the whispers of the deep grew louder, the sea's eternal song calling to those brave enough, or foolish enough, to listen. If this voyage into the unknown has captured your imagination, don't hesitate to subscribe for more mysteries of the deep. Like, comment, and share your theories with fellow seekers of the unexplained. What secrets do you think the ocean hides? Join the discussion below, and stay tuned for our next journey into the heart of maritime mystery and fear.